Now, the International Day of Families is observed on May 15th every year, having been proclaimed through a resolution of the United Nations General Assembly in 1993. The day's activities are designed to reflect the importance attached to families by the international community. The occasion provides an opportunity to promote awareness of issues relating to families, in addition to increasing knowledge of the social, economic, and demographic processes affecting the family unit. We're now being joined by the chairman of the Institute for Work and Family Integration, Charles Osezua, and his dear wife, Gloria Osezua, to look at the importance of the family to national development and national cohesion. Good afternoon and welcome to Newsday.
Good afternoon.
It's wonderful to have you. I'm excited to have this conversation. International Family Day. Well, happy International Family Day.
Thank you very much.
Getting into it, I'll start with you, sir, as the chairman of the Institute. Tell us a little bit about, this era that we live in now. The idea of family, the notion of family has evolved quite a bit. You have people who have jabad, there's so many things that, so many factors that have evolved. So what does the family unit mean to us here in Nigeria in 2024?
I think the family remains the same. But the family, as you and I know it, is challenged. A lot of socio-economic and political challenges. Jakba, you've mentioned very correctly. We are now all over the world. Time was, as a family, you expect your kids to be within your reach. But that has changed. So with the Jakba syndrome, with the economic and political challenges, the family is different. It's more dynamic, more fractured. And for us as an institute, which actually is the reason for our being, has been how do you, with all the changes, how do you ensure the family is able to fulfill its organic responsibility? The family is the foundation of the society. If we get it right in the family, we'll have a more resilient society, a blossoming economy, a more secure economy, indeed, I would say. But that is something we are now trying to fix up. And it's, again, that's why I say the family is challenged, it's fractured in different ways. I'm sure we can talk about if you ask me specific questions as we go.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll get to it, but of course, we have to come to you, Mrs. Osezua. Like your husband has said, the family is facing huge challenges. Some, when we consider the challenges that we're facing as a country, how does that trickle down to the family in terms of whether it's the pressure or keeping sanity together, keeping the family units together? How are we going to be able to do that, considering the realities that we face today?
Well, I would say, life starts in the family, and the family is the smallest unit of the society. And for that, so the focus is always there. So whatever we need to do or have to do to survive has to start from the family. And in that case, we still have the responsibility of making the family the family. We still have the responsibility of taking care of our families, our children, and all those who are the members of the family. And again, even now, it's even more now that the family has to be strengthened. The two structures that hold up the family, which is the father and the mother, needs that energy. They need that couple energy. They need to be able to still continue in spite of everything. So this does not divorce from the fact that we still have to teach our children values. Because yes, going out into the bigger society, they are going to be challenged in that way. And it is what the family is that the society will become. What the family does is going to be reflected in the way the society turns out. So the two, main persons there, which is the father and the mother, have to be strengthened. And that is why we in IWFI, we are focused on helping the couple, to still find meaning in the family. Excuse me. To still find meaning in the family. we have programs that help our family, the couples, to be able to, first know themselves. Wherever you are, whatever time you are operating it, you have to know yourself. Because that is the only way you can actually, couple yourself, excuse me, to be able to respond, to your reality. And you have to also know your spouse, because you need each other, to wind together so you'll be able to pass through the hard times. It's a means, I will agree with you. And particularly for Nigeria, there is this slogan now which is being said, oh yeah, if Nigeria happens to you. And when I hear that, I'm like, seriously, it wasn't like that. We used to wish, to be in this country and to enjoy whatever it is in it. But now the family needs to be more together to, imbibe those values, because the temptation out there is much for these children that are springing from the family to continue the society and make a future that has a future in it. So the job is still the same. No matter how hard it is, the children need to be formed, the two of them need to be well knitted, that is the father and the mother, and be able to carry on.
I love that you're emphasizing the importance of healthy relationships, because I'll come back to you, Mr. Osezua, because a lot of the focus right now seems to be on money. Now, we know that, and it's not just now, this is, as old as time, we know that financial issues, financial challenges are one of the leading causes of divorce. And, apart from divorce, you also look at some of the values that young people are growing up with now. A lot of it is driven by the pursuit of money, and how as society we've glamorized that money is the most important thing that you can attain. So, in your perspective, how do we maintain these healthy relationships when it seems that money, the love of money and the pursuit of money is what seems to have become the priority for a family unit, especially, and you can't blame them given the economic hardships that exist currently?
Well, you're absolutely correct, but I think it's again about knowing the purpose for being. The family exists for a purpose. Unfortunately today, like I said at my first remark, that the family is challenged, and it's challenged in various different ways. Gloria has emphasized, or you've talked about the economy, and Gloria, of course, alluded to that same thing. But if we take the economic pursuit, for instance, today from studies we've done in the Lagos particularly, because it's our catchment area, in the Ikoyi, Victoria Land, Lekki axis, you find that 73.3% of households have dual income parents. What happens in that? So they're trying to meet the financial objective. But in doing that, we're taking our eyes off the formation, education of the children, which is the first responsibility of parents. We've outsourced, therefore, the education of our children to untrained or disinterested educators by default. So now our children are being brought up by nannies, in some cases drivers, and even security guards. We have teachers, of course, who come there, who today are not even so certain what their role, or to what extent can they educate our children before the absent parent shows up and say, you are abusing my child. So there's these uncertainties and cloud. Gloria was talking about what we are doing. So if you look at the catchment area, Ikoyi, Victoria Land, and Lekki, with that disconnect from the first responsibility as a teacher for parents, because to teach a child, you have to love a child. And for you to prepare a child for future leadership is to teach them morals and values beyond the academics. Because we all seem to emphasize, yes, math physics, or the best lawyers, or best doctor, and so on. They're all very important. But a doctor or a lawyer is governed by norms and morals. And those are fundamental things that you learn in the family. And if the family takes its eyes off it, there's a problem. And we see it here everywhere in our country. And family stability, which you alluded to. At least as a couple of years ago, failure rate of marriage was about 50%. It's getting a little bit better because they are marrying later, so maybe they're a bit more matured or more determined, takes determination. If you see failure in marriage, we see adult delinquencies, we see the political issues really, all that we went through last year in our country. You start to see the needs to re-emphasize those values. What we are doing in this case is to say, okay, strengthen the family, which Gloria was talking about. So ensuring that there's cohesion, there's harmony at home. At the end of it all, somebody from a happy home is a better worker, fewer distractions. Now, we're also then working with schools, at least about 10 of them here in this general area, to ensure teachers are equipped to engage parents again. Because we've outsourced the education of our kids. Now, bring them back in. Encourage parents to take more interest. Because you can, and what we see from studies, not that it's uniquely ours, indeed I must confess that first, is that when parents are involved in the education of their children, they do better in school. They have higher personal confidence. And then they're able to withstand peer bullying. And these are very critical today, now in our society. So these are some of the roles and ways to strengthen the family. But answer your question, yes, we are all in pursuit. There's a greater emphasis on money to the detriment of values. But without values, the family is failing from its primary role of passing on its heritage or preparing the children for leadership. Leadership at the end of the day is what? Education in virtue, which I don't need to define it any further.
Yes. Of course, you've spoken very well. And like you said, there's so much, like you said, outsourcing the education of children to the school and whatnot. But I'm coming to you, Mrs. Osezua, based on all that your husband has mentioned. Nigeria specifically has given so much responsibility to the family, whether it's in terms of providing light, your own electricity, water, and whatnot. So the pressure is immense. That's for starters. So now I'm wondering, what role would you like to see the government play when it comes to policies or initiatives, to implement supports that helps in strengthening the family? Because of course, it's the fruit of the family that's going to go out into society. Absolutely. But the government still needs to do its own share. So what role do you like to see the government play?
Well, for the government, I believe, or I think, they should encourage or should make policies that are family friendly. There should be, like in other places, you have, time sharing of jobs, which parents can, mothers, can, or anybody, they can do. Somebody works from 8 till 2 and the other one from 2 till 5. So there is time given to the family, which is the primary responsibility of the parents. And of course, also, they are not, kind of cooped up in the house and feeling miserable. They're able to earn some, livelihood for the family. So that is one thing. And the government should also encourage, should make policies that will help the, companies to be, to make those family and, family-friendly, laws or policies, giving them parental leave. That is one thing that, has happened over the years. You find that, when the woman gives birth, okay, in some companies, well, she'll be on maternity leave, but the father is never there because he has to work. We are told he's a man and he has to be out there. But when this is done, it does two things. It helps the family to bond together, so the woman is going through stress of having delivered a child and recovery. The man is there to support. And secondly, it helps him not to be alienated, because you find part of the problem because we did deal with, couples a lot in our institute. Part of the problem you find is that they come and the men complain that I'm not a stranger in my own house because my wife has no time for me because we have just had a child. These are things that can be improved on by the government by providing those alternatives that will help us or help the parents to do better in those regards. And I think with that there will be that livelihood of in empowering each other and helping the new couples and whoever they may be to be able to survive as a family.
Speaking of new couples in this family unit, because I feel we're speaking of the family unit in a very Western context of it. As Africans, especially when you talk about a new member coming into the family in terms of a baby, we like to say it takes a village. But this sense of, as South Africans might call it, this sense of Ubuntu. This sense of the fact that a community or society, everybody takes care of one another, seems to be, evolving towards that of the West. You look at some of the stories in the news. For example, there's a story that's currently doing the rounds of a young girl, a toddler, about 3 or 4 years old, who's being used as an escort, by her own father. And you ask yourself, okay, fine, where's the community? Because there was a time where even if there's no mother, there's no father, there was a neighbor or there was an auntie or there was, how can we recultivate that? Because it seems like more than ever, we can't help the fact that they're dual income households. We're trying to make ends meet. I'm a working mom. From here, I rush home, I have to take care of there's so many, but we need to make ends meet. So parents are working. But you look at your neighbors might just, God forbid, see something happen and ignore it and go. So how as a nation can we come together and become a family as a Nigerian nation so that we can look after one another?
Well, it takes a village to bring up a child. And it used to be a slogan we all say. But today, it takes an app.
An app.
To bring up a child.
Wow.
The modern mother, when a child is crying, what does she do? She gives him or her telephone with some cartoon. And those are now defining values. So by default, we are imbibing the so-called Western culture and value. What do? The other thing, of course, is that we are no longer, as it was in the rural area, where everybody was in the same place. So it's now to apply modern technology, because there's a positive aspect of it. But let me come back to the subject you were talking about. The how. Is to consciously, we're talking about the mission, the purpose for being. A family is a family because it unites. It's about love. It's about those values and virtues. You rush home because you are a mother to care about the family. And that's a laudable example. But that's what all of us should be doing. But what that means, therefore, there has to be, which goes back to the question you asked earlier, was the role of government. To consciously create such an environment that you as a nursing mother, or as a mother indeed, can rush home. So when you do not have the village, and we find, unfortunately, that we are now driven by AI and other similar technology, we have to now consciously create that environment. What do we see happening? Time was in this country, corporates were encouraged to create crèche. So a nursing mother has a crèche near the office, and when it's time to nurse, is able to go to crèche and nurse the baby. Lagos State, I think, has the paternity leave. Few weeks, I think, but whatever it's worth, maybe the first week, I don't know exactly, but they have a paternity leave policy. But similar policies need to be created. We're talking about parental involvement in education just now. Simple reason is that we are not the creator, which I alluded to, a disclaimer to say, look, OECD countries have it. And why was it necessary? To be able to stay competitive in the global economy. The studies we've done here shows clearly when parents, I think I said it just now, when parents are involved in the education of their children, they have that confidence and they do better in school. Yes. Now, that should be something that you can drive by policy. Parents, spouses can be more at home to support each other. And kids can have the attention of their parents so they can participate in their education. You can only train with love, and that's when it sticks. So, I think that's really...
You've both spoken very well. Again, it's on record that we have a whole family in the studio. I don't know, I think we see this very often, but we'd like to thank you both for your wonderful input. Chairman, Institute for Work and Family Integration, Mr. Charles Osezua, and of course, Vice Chairman, Mrs. Gloria Osezua. Thank you both for being here, and we wish you well. It takes a nap.
It takes
a nap. It doesn't take a minute, it takes a nap.
You're very right on that. If anything happens with my child, I Google. I no longer call my mom to say, help, the child is crying.
Good. Thank you both, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's a pleasure.
And happy Family Day.
Yes.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yes.